some fun with Rhett Palmer.
And now, the most trusted name in radio, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
And it is I, the mayor of the airwaves, inside. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. This fella was on the inside. His name is Scott Hoffman. Good morning, Scott Hoffman. And,
Good morning, Rhett Palmer.
And his father, his book is a novel, but it is a composite of real people, real events. His father oversaw 7 casinos and 7 hotels, and you probably can have a guess at what family he was involved with. INSIDE, inside. Scott, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine, Rhett.
Are you in the protection mode, or can you tell us where you are geographically?
I'm not in WPP, so that I don't have to worry about. Those
Great.
guys you only go west of the Mississippi is where they put them. I'm in Chicago.
Okay, you're in Chicago. Where else would you be? Chicago. So tell us something. What now? If I might ask you, you've waited a few years. You're obviously not in your teens, 20s, or maybe in the 30s. But why did you wait all this time to come forward?
Well, the reason I did that is on June 30th of 2012, I retired from the city of Chicago after working for 35 years. And at that point, they always want retirees to stay active, keep your mind alert, exercise. And I figured that was the right time because I had the time to start to sit down and write and do the book.
Well, wonderful. So now I presume your father's no longer alive.
That's correct. My father died September 20th of 1997.
So you grew up, where did you grow up? In Chicago or in Las Vegas?
Yes, on the north side of Chicago.
Is that where the casinos were?
No, there was no legal gambling at that point. There was no casinos. I'm talking Las Vegas.
Aha.
That's where the action was, in Las Vegas.
So did you end up moving to Las Vegas?
No. My father was going back and forth, and I went with him 5 times a year when I was 8 years old. And the plan was very difficult to get through. My father reported to Paul Ricca. He was a manager for Paul Ricca, who had been a bodyguard for Al Capone. He was a consigliere for Sam Giancana. He reported to Tony Accardo, who would have been considered like the CEO of the outfit. And in 1973, he reported to Joe Yayupa, who took over day-to-day operation. And the plan basically, my father knew what Mayor Lansky was doing in Havana with Batista, which was a mini Las Vegas. I don't know how he exactly knew. He never told me, but he knew. He knew what was going on there. And he had gone out to Las Vegas. He saw the Flamingo, the Bugsy Siegel, started in 1946. And then he saw the Sands, which was started in 1951, where Lansky and Frank Costello each owned 25% of the Sands. So when he went forward with the plan, and he talked with Paul Ricca and Sam Giancana and Tony Accardo, Paul Ricca was just listening, but not really commenting. Sam Giancana at that time said, well, let's see, but there was no enthusiasm in his voice. Tony Accardo right away said, Vegas is a flash in the pan. It's never going to work. Nothing's going to happen there. We're going to lose our money there. So my father said to him, Tony, listen, this is how we can make money there. We'll take all the illegal money from Chicago, which was coming from various sources, okay? And take that money to Las Vegas and in the hotel, in the casinos, buy the chips, and then cash the chips in, and you'll bring back the money clean. It's money laundering. So the money will come back clean. It will not be dirty money at that point. And Tony Accardo said, do the plan. And that's how.
Now, hold on a second. So you go in, let's say you go in, you buy $1 million worth of chips, and then you don't play or you don't lose, and you cash in the chips. How does anybody know that? I mean, at that time, did the feds have money like that followed? I mean, now you can't even put $10,000 into your bank account without declaring it. Back then, you didn't have to. How would they know?
They didn't do it because basically J. Edgar Hoover was not pushing mob activity. And there was a story, but only a rumor why that happened. So, but there was no push from the G, meaning the FBI or anything like that at all. Because to them, Las Vegas was new. They really didn't know what was going on. They had no idea because there was only, like I say, there was only the Flamingo and the Sands at that point. It was growing. So there was no real interest at that point. Now it's different.
Yeah. So was your father, would this be considered, other than the cleaning of the money, which they used, was it, other than that, was it a legitimate business?
Well, nothing the mob gets involved with is a legitimate business. Sure, it had to be in the sense of this is one thing where the movies get it wrong, like Casino. That's not really the true story. The way Casino was shown. Okay, it was done for entertainment. It was great, but I'm familiar with that. That's not how it runs.
Okay.
Basically, what it would be, and the reason my father was going out there for meetings was he would talk with business people who run legitimate businesses who wanted to get a license to run the hotels. They would run the hotels. And in Las Vegas, it's still the same. It takes about a year because you're under investigation. So you have to use legit people. Like they would say, come to you. You're a legit person, as much as we know at this point. Okay. And you would get a license. It would take about a year, but you would only be running the hotel. And my father would tell people, bring in hotel people. You might be successful in your business, but you don't know hotel business.
Well, your father had wisdom.
Problems. We don't want any problems. And we're going to run the casinos, he would tell them, and we're going to be consultants for you in the casino. Okay, and the skim was 10% every day, and the hotel owners got 90% of what was left after that 10% every day.
Hold on. Who were the hotel owners?
Hotel owners were regular business people.
And you guys only took, the skin was 10%.
Sure, but you got to remember, it's a 24/7 business, yeah.
I'm surprised they were willing to take just that little bit amount. I mean, usually greed prevails.
Well, that's why my father held it back, because we were bringing money. You got to remember, it wasn't just that was bringing in the money. See?
Oh, it was the cleaning. I forget.
In other words, let's say the liquor had to be brought in. We got 30% of the liquor. The food that had to be brought in, 30% there.
Oh, so they would buy from the purveyors, and then in the back pocket of your father, representing his family, he would get 30% of the liquor. Oh, that's very wow. Yeah, that's smart. I mean, that's smart as far as cagey as far as business,
And then he also brought in what they call off-street bookies from Chicago.
What's that?
In other words, you have guys that gamble, and they don't want to gamble with a sports bet because if they win a certain amount, they got to report it to the IRS. Okay, but if you're using that street bookie, there's no IRS report.
Okay, hold on.
You got to make sure you pay.
Okay, explain it to me. So I come to town, and I've got $10,000, and if I spend it directly at the casino, somehow it's going to be reported.
Well, see, there's an IRS rule that if you win more than X number of dollars in a casino, because the casino reports it, they send it to the IRS.
Yeah.
Considered earned income. Okay, that's earned income.
Sure.
So if you use a guy off the street, then it's not, the IRS doesn't know because there's no filing.
Okay, well, how does it go? Hold on. Then I give the guy off the street, this bookie guy, $10,000. So he goes and buys the tickets or the chips, right?
Yeah, he would buy if he was.
But if he wins, how come he doesn't have to report it? I mean, every win is reported. So how come that wouldn't?
But you got to remember, everything is mobbed up in the casino. Okay, everything is mobbed up, and he's not only going into a casino. He might be betting on a football game, on basketball. He's placing the bets that way.
Oh, okay.
So he's not really using casino. He's not walking into a casino. He's betting. And they used to have the parlay cards, okay, with the sport, like football on there, the point spread, like they always put out the point spread, like they did on this past, Super Bowl. Okay, they put out the point spread, so that's how he'd be betting. He wasn't going into the casino. You would have, if you went into the casino, you'd have to report whatever you won over next number.
I see. I get it.
He's not going into a casino.
Now, these things that you know. You said your father got involved in oversaw 7 casinos and 7 hotels. You were from the time you were 8 years of age.
Correct.
Now, obviously, your father had some wisdom. In the scriptures, which I'm familiar with, it says the children of this age are wiser than the children of the age to come. And your father obviously had wisdom, street wisdom, I guess you'd call it. I mean, if you,
Correct.
I remember when I was younger, I had this lawyer named Larry Long out of Albany, New York, and this guy in his 30s, he had street wisdom. Me, I'm 70 years of old and of age, and I still don't have street wisdom. I'm one of those people. It's for the day. I'm a child of the age to come, meaning I'm a believer in Jesus, and I believe that all that stuff, in the Bible. But anyway, so it amazes me how cagey. Is that the right word, cagey? Or
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
mean the things they think up. I remember one time I was talking to a guy who was in prison. Somebody I know, a friend. She was taking classes, New York State, on how to edit film for TV. Well, the class was available, but it was from midnight till 3 in the morning. Now, they did this because it legally had to be available to the public. But the public wouldn't come because it was but legally they had this. Well, we found out about that little loophole, so she ends up going to school for free with these mobsters and gets trained and ends up working at a TV station after that. Well, anyway, I'm talking to this one guy. His name is Tony Roma, the same as the Tony Roma who came to this town to build a restaurant years later. But anyway, so his name was Tony Roma, but a different Tony Roma. And I said, he had, like he said, he had 100 credit cards. And then he would borrow from one and pay another off with the other one and blah. He said, but that's not what I got caught for. I got caught for blah, 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 blah. And I looked at him and I knew this man was more intelligent. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I have gifts in the arts and things. Hopefully, we have different kind, emotional intelligence, artistic intelligence. There are different kinds of intelligentsia. But this guy was. I said, why don't you go into legitimate business? You could be a billionaire. He said, because it's the fun. In other words, they're so bright that
Well,
it just
my
amazes
father
me.
would always say, years later, I'd ask my father, why did you go into the life?
Yeah.
Because my father was very smart, but
Yeah.
his mother, when the vice principal in his high school found out about his grades and all, because he had worked in the cafeteria just to get a free lunch, he asked my father, what would you like to do? My father wanted to be a surgeon. He wanted to be a medical doctor. He had very good grades. And the vice principal said, have you thought about college? My father said, well, in those days, kids didn't go to college. It was rare.
Yeah.
He said, I never thought about college. And so the vice principal went to get a friend in the admissions office at the University of Chicago. And he came back and he told my father, I can get you an academic scholarship to University of Chicago. You could be a pre-med major. So he's real excited. He goes home, he tells his mother, and his mother says, that's fine, go to work, get a job, you got to bring money in the house. And he had known Sam Giancana. That's another story of how he met Sam Giancana. Then he called Sam Giancana, and Sam Giancana says, can you drive a beer truck? My father said, yeah, I don't know if he could or he couldn't, but he told him he could because he's an outright shotgun. With the shotgun, we'll make the beer runs up to Milwaukee. And then Sam Giancana was a protege of Paul Ricca, who was very smart. He was Al Capone's bodyguard. He got Capone's ear. Capone listened to him. He also brought in Tony Accardo. And he started to talk to him about my father. And my father was very young at the time, but he told my Paul Ricca, he said, this guy's a very smart guy. And Paul Ricca talked to my father. He said, look, do you know any black hands? Can you help? Can you control the black hands? Can you talk with the black hands? Everyone was afraid of the black hands. Everybody.
They're afraid of the black kids?
Black hands, yeah. Black hands were all Sicilian. They were born in Sicily. They came to America. They were extortionists. They would come to your business, want protection money, okay? And if you say, get out of here, I don't want to deal with you, then that night they'd break your windows. That's how it would start. Then they'd come back the next day and talk about money. The neighborhood's changing. There's some bad people in the neighborhood. We can protect you. And the guy says, get out of here, okay? And that's when they put a black hand on your door, on your front door. A black hand was put on the door, which means now you were marked. So at that point, that's when they burn your business down, okay? Your business would be burned down. And they come in, and that's when they say, well, you should have listened to us. We can help you. And eventually the guys would, okay, they rebuild the business, but they start giving extortion money.
Wow.
But the thing with the Black Hands was they did not want anybody in the mob who was not Sicilian, basically. They would accept Northern Italians. If you were Northern Italian, they would accept you, but you could not get a leadership position. And any non-Italians, they didn't want it all, period. Now, my father had played cards with a lot of the Black Hands. He knew several of them and played cards, so they trusted him. So when he took over, he was like maybe 23 years old.
Oh.
Managed these guys were 35, 40 years old. You know, they were older than him. And the first thing he said, the first meeting he had with them, he says, "What's your beef? What's bothering you guys?" And in mob life, you don't know when you're going to get paid, okay? That's why a lot of guys pull the side jobs. It's not like you got a 1st and the 16th or the 1st and the 15th. You don't know. And they wanted to get paid every Friday. So he said, look, if you hustle, you bring the money in the street, I'll talk to Paul, meaning Paul Rica. So they started hustling. They're bringing money in. He goes to talk with Paul Rica. And Paul Rica says, look, they'll pay tribute to you of at least 15%. And tribute is paying money, kicking money up to a boss. And Paul Rica said, okay, we'll pay them every Friday if they can bring the money in. And they hustled down the street and they started to get paid every Friday. But everyone was very fearful of them because, like I say, they were very violent, very, very, very violent. And if you weren't a born Sicilian in Sicily, they weren't really, even if you were a Sicilian born in America, there was conflicts. But if you were born in Sicily, that was another story. And so from there, that's how my father got going. Okay, that's how he really got going. And in the early 1930s, when the union started in Hollywood, he would talk with Paul Rica and he said, let's get control. We'll get control of the unions, the Hollywood unions. We'll make people stars. We'll run the operation there. And they run a slate. This is how they got control of the unions. They run a slate of delegates and they get elected and they had control. And see, when I met Marilyn Monroe, I really knew how she got the part in the movie Some Like It Hot. But I didn't tell her. I wasn't going to tell her. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't tell her. But I knew how she got the part.
How?
And she wasn't supposed to get the part, okay? Because Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis were in the movie, and Jack Lemmon was real close with Billy Wilder, the director. And he had done summer stock, which they used to do in those days, with Shirley MacLaine. He wanted Shirley MacLaine to play the part that Marilyn Monroe played. And he thought he had a lock on it because he thought he had the juice because he was, he
The
won the
Juice,
Academy Award.
Juisc, or Jews, Jews?
It's juice.
Juice.
Juice, interest. Juice is known as interest or clout or power. Okay, you got the juice. It means you got the clout, you got the power,
You got the juice.
And also, that's in loan sharking. The interest is called juice. That's what they're called, juice collectors. So he thought he had it, because he had won the Academy Award in the movie Mr. Roberts. Okay, as a actor. And best supporting actor. So he was real popular. Once you win an award, your salary goes up, everything goes up. So he sees Billy Wilder, and Billy Wilder says, sure, Shirley MacLaine and you would be great chemistry. Tony Curtis didn't care as long as he had work. I knew him. As long as he had work, he'd go along with anything. So that's what they thought. Well, there was a guy that was an investor in the movie, and he knew Sam Giancana. And he talked to Sam Giancana. He says, we got to get Marilyn Monroe in the movie. So Sam Giancana called my father. My father went to see him. I was with my father at that time because I was with my father all the time, whatever he was doing. And we went to see him, and Sam Giancana says, mention the guy's name. He says, he can make big money, get Marilyn Monroe. It'll be a big money maker. He says, how can we do it? And my father says, basically what we're going to do is we're going to control it through the unions. Because without the Hollywood unions, you're not going to be able to make a movie. The grips, all the people that work behind the scenes, they don't show up. There's no movie being made, okay? And he said to Sam Giancana, look, you'll take 35%. Tell the guy you'll do it for 35%. The guy was all excited. And Marilyn Monroe was given a screen test. It was all cut and dried. Everything was done, but she didn't know that. She was given a screen test. Her agent said,
but hold on. There's one important thing here. Was she already famous?
Yes, she was. Because
So
she had done Gentlemen Before
so
Prefer Blondes.
so
Yeah, sure.
why get involved in this? Because it's nebulous. Because before this is done, Shirley MacLaine might have been the right person for this. Why did they want Monroe? Because they're trying to make her a megastar, or who, and who owned her?
Well, at that point, Marilyn Monroe was much more famous than Shirley MacLaine. She was iconic. Okay, my grandfather
Already.
had shot the July 1953 Playboy magazine, the cover. My grandfather was the photographer. Okay, and the reason Hugh Hefner used my grandfather, because my grandfather, they didn't have airbrushes in those days. Okay, there was no airbrush. My grandfather by
And in
hand
case somebody doesn't
put in
understand,
skin.
airbrush means that who's the girl that comes to this town? That's the she does the she's Crawford. She comes to this town and she said,
Cindy Crawford.
I wish I looked like Cindy Crawford when I woke up in the morning.
Yeah.
And she said I saw this on TV, and they would, no matter who you are, they slim down the waist, they move
Correct.
I mean, nobody really looks like they look.
No, but my grandfather, what he could do, his ability is, besides, he's a portrait photographer. By hand, he could put in the flesh tones in the negatives. So you would never know that you look at the picture, you look at Marilyn Monroe, the magazine covers online, you'll see all her skin tones look normal. Her arms, her breast, the breast showing, everything looks normal.
Yeah.
That's because my grandfather was able to put in by hand the flesh tones.
Wow.
That when the negatives were printed, that was it.
Wow.
So yeah, she was a big star already at that point. Big star. She was
Yeah.
iconic, very, very big. So that's how she got the role. And Shirley MacLaine had to wait till 1961 when she made the movie The Apartment with Jack Lemmon. That was her big break, but she had to wait. She didn't get the part. Went to Marilyn Monroe. It was a big money maker. They made a lot of money on that movie because of her, Jack Lemmon. And Tony Curtis was the throw along. He was his throw along. But yeah, that was a big money maker. But I couldn't tell her when I saw her. I wouldn't do that because she thought she got it legit.
Years ago, my grandfather lived at 234 East 50th Street, and I was a teenager, and there was a restaurant up the street, and I was playing my songs. I started writing songs when I was 14, right? So I'm in New York City one night, and that guy you're talking about, I think it's Sam Giancana, one of those really big guys, was in the audience in this restaurant. And the word got to me that he was considering getting behind me to make my career. He liked what he heard that night. And obviously it didn't work out. But later in life, I thank God I feel protected, because once the mob has their claws in you, you may be prosperous, but it's like that Wayne Newton out there. That guy's got to work day and night until he's dead, right?
There's another story with Wayne Newton. That's a longer story with the Aladdin Hotel when Johnny Carson wanted to buy it. Oh, that's a long story. That's a long story. In fact, Wayne Newton is the only guy left that I could say from the early stages. Actually, I think it was about 63 when he made the song Dankeschön, and he split from his brother, Jim. They had a big fight. And later got back together when Jim got sick. They had a big fight. That's when Wayne Newton went out on his own. Okay. But yeah, he had some people. That's what him and Carson had that big fight, and then Carson wouldn't have him on the show. Yeah, I know a lot of things. I know.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I'm getting at here is, like I know somebody who came out of addiction in regionally here in Florida, and she said she lived in New York. I think it was New York, yeah. And she said she would go to the Catholic Church, and the Mafia would come in, the mafiosi guys would come in, the made men would come in, and they'd sit, let's say midway. And she would always sit behind them, a few rows behind them. So they would put in $100 bills. Well, when the basket went by her, she snatched the $100 bills to buy her drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
I find that funny, ill-gotten gain grows wings and takes flight.
Well, I'll tell you this. My father, people say to me, your father was in over 55 years, never went to jail. The reason he never did, my father used churches, okay? He used churches to meet with people. He used phones in the churches, and he'd always give the priest a $5 donation. And if the priest was a drinker, he'd give him Johnny Walker Red, Jack Daniels. And I spent a lot of time in Catholic churches, and I'm not Catholic. I spent a lot of time. And you'd always see this with guys. They put in the money. And the reason that was all done, because the Catholic faith is the only faith that has absolution. And these guys were always looking at the end of their life for absolution. I'll never forget. I'm in a hotel. I'm in a hospital.
Isn't it
with one
funny?
guy,
They
Johnny
think that.
Cavello.
Say again?
His name was Johnny Cavello, and he was dying. Okay,
Johnny
and I'm
Cavello.
there, and his family's there, and the priest comes with the oils. He's going to give him last rites.
Yeah.
He says to him, "Look, Father," he says, "there's one guy, this fucking son of a bitch." He says, "I want to dig him up. I want to dig him up.
Yeah.
And I want to shoot him again. So can I get 2 absolutions for one guy?" And the priest is looking to me, and I say, "Father, let's go outside for a second." So we got out in the hall in the hospital, and he says, "I don't know what to do." And I says, "Father, just tell him this. It's never 2 for 1. You don't take any coupons. You can only give 1 absolution for 1 murder. That is it." So the priest goes in and tells Johnny. Johnny says, "Is there any way we can bend the rule, like?" Father says, looks at me, and I shake my head, say, no, Mr. Cavello, this is how it has to be." He says, all right. I'll find that guy wherever he's buried. I'll get him. Don't worry. And so he gave him absolution. Okay. So yeah, I spent a lot of time. I saw a lot of things, but that's what it was about. And also, we had 5 churches.
Hold on. I gotta say something. Yeah, my stupid phone rang, and I kind of got distracted. Hold on a second. You got explain this again. So he can only get absolution for 1 murder, but this
Correct.
guy murdered more than 1. So how did he? What did he have to do in order to get absolution?
Absolution, as long as the priest gives you absolution,
Yeah.
absolves you, you're absolved, and you can go to heaven.
So what did he do to make that happen, to satisfy the priest?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole thing. You said something.
What did the bad guy, the murderer, what did he do to get the absolution? Because he killed 2 people,
someone.
right?
Yeah. No, he murdered one guy who he hated, and he wanted to dig him up and shoot him again and kill him a second time. Okay? The guy would be already dead. He just wanted to shoot into the body. In other words, dig him up from the cemetery. Let me get another shot at him, and I'll kill him again. Okay?
Why?
Because he was that mad at the guy because he figured maybe the guy's soul is alive. And I'll make sure he's dead. I'm going to kill his soul. So even though the guy's dead, he's buried in the cemetery, Johnny wanted to have the body dug up, shoot him, kill that soul. I'm going to kill him. That means he'd kill him twice.
Oh,
and the priest says, "Well, no, I can't give you for 2 murders because would be considered another murder. You can only do 1 at a time."
So he didn't dig the body up.
No, he never got to. Johnny was on his last days. He was going to die. But this is what Johnny was thinking.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
This is
This is what happens when you think men have the power of God. Man, frankly, folks, if you're listening to this, I can guarantee you this. I've had contact with Jesus. Priests cannot give you absolution. Only God can give absolution. Oh my God!
Well, that's in theory, but as far as the religion, I'm just speaking the religion.
Yeah,
I'm not speaking anything about God or anything.
I know.
That's something.
I understand. I get where you're coming from. I'm just saying religion doesn't save anybody. Oh my word!
That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
You got to remember I had a lot of. I'll tell you this. In mob speak, I had to learn mob speak. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you
Mob speak. I like
an
that.
Example. I'll give you mob speak.
Yeah.
In other words, when you watch a movie, the word kill somebody is always you're whacking them, right? I'm sure you've heard it in movies. He's going to get whacked.
Yeah.
Whacked. But there's another term. And the other term is give him his receipt. So if you're in a store and the clerk says to you, "Mr. Palmer, would you like your receipt?" You make sure your comfortable shoes are laced up tight and you run out as fast as you can out of that store. Because what he's telling you is you're going to be killed. So you don't want your receipt. You don't want it at all. That's another form of mob speak. Okay? Another form of mob speak was three in the head. I mean, shoot him 3 times in the back of the head. All right? So, and then I had problems really because not being a Catholic, and when they would talk about Jesus Christ, my father said, "Listen," because my mother wanted me to go to Hebrew school to get at least know about the religion. So
Or
you can't talk
wait,
to a
wait, wait,
rabbi
were you
about-
Jewish?
Yes,
Oh, so your
Yes.
father was Jewish.
yes. He wasn't Italian.
Oh, so
No.
they were smart enough to hire a Jew to do okay, they recognized his intellect.
Yeah, well, you got, you have to remember this. With old-time mobsters, whether they were Jewish or Italian, there was always a saying that Jews kill for each other, Italians kill each other,
Hold on, say this
Okay.
again. The Jews kill for each other.
and Italians kill each other.
Yeah. Well,
That
that's
was always
true,
the
isn't it?
same. Yeah, it was always the same. So, anyways, now I got a problem. I'm talking to my father, and I says, when these people talk about Jesus Christ, it's a little confusing. I can't talk to a rabbi. I can't tell anybody because they'd go crazy. So my father says, always remember when somebody references and says the name Jesus Christ, just treat it as Joel Cohn. So
Who?
to me, Jesus Christ was Joel Cohn.
Joel
Okay.
Cohen.
Joel Cohen. So I'm going to school, Long Island University in Brooklyn, New York, right? And
Yeah.
I'm talking to a student, and I introduce myself to him. I say, I'm Scott Hoffman. And he says, I'm Joel Cohen. And I say, Jesus Christ. And he's all excited. I'm not a Christian. I'm Jewish. He got all excited, because I associated Joel Cohen with Jesus Christ.
How old are you at the
So-
time? How old?
I was, 19. I was going to college at that time. Okay. So it just came out of my mouth because I was so used to it.
Because you were having
I'm
fun
so-
with him.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
was so used to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So he just got so excited, I say, all right, take it easy, calm down. Because when I went to college in New York, I had to come up with a room and board. I got an academic scholarship to Long Island University, but I had to come up with a room and board. So I worked what I knew. I worked mob social clubs. I worked Colombo. I worked Lucchese, Bonanno. And in Lucchese, I worked at a hotel, the Suite. It was owned by Henry Hill. And if you remember the movie Goodfellas,
Yes.
that was Henry Hill. So I knew all the real Goodfellas.
Oh, I
would
want
know-
to ask you this to the side. You said there were different names, like give him his receipt or you're going to get whacked. And remember the movie that came out a couple of years ago? They called him the Painter. He'll paint.
Yeah, I know about that. I know him.
Is that true that
I
they
met
would
him.
call you the Painter? Because the
Well,
blood would be
that-
over the
what-
wall,
see,
so
what that-
he's going to come paint his house?
What that's about is this. This is what it means is when you ask a guy, my father asked guys, when you say, do you paint walls or do you paint houses? What it means is when you shoot the guy, the blood's going to go spattering over the walls.
Yeah.
That's what it means. To paint the wall
Yeah.
in mob terms means the blood will be spurting out of the wall.
Now let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Now, so
the Irish-
was your father half of my family's Jewish, so I understand some of the stuff. So was your father a practicing Jew? Did he go to temple?
No, he never went to temple.
Oh, okay, so he was just a social Jew.
Yeah.
Okay,
He was-
so I mean, because this is a typical case of bad companionship. The Bible says bad companionship ruins good character. Here, your father had the intellect and was going to get free college, but he goes and works for Sam what's his name? Sammy G.
Sam Giancana.
Giancano, who's
Giancana.
he's at the
Yeah,
top.
you
He's
know-
at the top of the mafia, and he says he recognizes this young Jewish boy and says, "Hey, we want you to work for us." And do you have any idea what they paid your father annually?
No, my father always worked legit jobs. He worked legit jobs.
In other words, when
He
he
did
was
not-
running, wait, hold on. When he was running the casino, he was like the manager of the casino.
He had someone run the casino, and he'd be over him. Okay.
So,
He
but your
brought
father,
someone in.
how did your father get paid? He had to get a check from the corporation that owned the casino, right?
No, he didn't work for the casino.
Who did he work
never
for?
worked for the casino. Never.
He worked for the mob.
He did things for the mob, but when he did his tax returns, he always had a legit W-2. He had a legit W-2.
How?
Because he worked legit jobs.
Like what?
Okay. He worked regular jobs. He worked for companies. He worked for these were not mobbed up companies. They were regular companies.
How do you have time to run the mob and run the companies?
He didn't run them. He did things for him. And he was able to work it out.
Yeah, but how did
You
they?
go
They had to
down-
pay him. They had to compensate him.
They did favors for him. Let's put it that way. They did
So in
favors,
other
but my
words,
father worked regular
So
jobs.
hold on. So your father was ostensibly a consultant to the
That's
mob.
correct.
So he didn't
That's
work
correct.
full time, but he had the brain part to say, do it this way, this way, this way. That's amazing that Sam Giancanto that had the the wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, that but did he ever have remorse for helping these guys who they knew
Not
were
at all. Never. You know what he told me? What he would say to me was this. He said, they come to us. We don't go door to door soliciting. These people come to us. In other words, these people who have gambling addictions, they put up their business. If they owed that much money, they put
Yeah.
up their business. And the outfit would get like 70% of the business, and they'd keep 30%. If they owned a store or business where they did business and it was their building, within a year or two, that building would be burnt down and the outfit would get the insurance money. Okay.
You know,
So, yeah.
do you know that I just read this last week. It must have been being set up for this interview by the man upstairs, as he always does for me. Did you know that gambling is the most dangerous addiction? More people commit suicide over gambling than any other addiction. I never knew that. When I
Yes,
was
that's
young,
correct.
I had an ad in the paper in Albany, New York, that I would that I could, take care of your dog on the weekends if you were traveling, or I would stay at people's houses for a week or two and watch their pets. Well, this guy calls me, and his name is Sam, and he's a Jewish guy. Well, he said he got addicted to gambling. He gambled away his insurance company. And for
Correct.
some reason, he lost, I guess because of drinking and gambling, he lost his license. So I'm 18 years of age. He says, hey, kid, you want to just drive my Cadillac for me? So I would drive him evenings, and he would go to houses to sell aluminum siding. And I remember this, that he said, he came out one night and I said, did you sell them? A couple hours. He goes, yeah. I said, what'd you make? He says, I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? He says, I never think about the money. I think about the fact that I just saved this family in Schenectady, New York. I saved them 40% on their heating bill coming this severe winter's coming in upstate New York. And that's what I think about, what I'm giving them. But that was Sam Christ, Krist, in Albany, New York. Lost
Well,
his whole
that's,
business.
like I say, this is from experience of seeing once a person has an addiction, whether it's drugs, we had the same thing with drugs. We had 5 doctors who were on the payroll who wrote prescriptions for amphetamines. They got 20%, the outfit got 80%. They would write prescriptions for 150 to 200 tablets. Okay.
Who got 20% of what?
The street 5 times over, what would you buy in a, say, Walgreens, a pharmacy? The amphetamines were sold 5 times the price, the actual price on the street.
Oh.
The people who had addictions, you got to remember, when you're dealing with addictions,
Yeah.
those people will use any source. They don't care what the price is. They want what they want. They want the drugs.
Yeah, no, I never knew that before, that people will do stuff that's totally contrary to their essential character. Women selling,
absolutely.
so women selling their bodies, men robbing people. Whereas if the addiction is almost like this big ape, this demonic ape that takes over their being, and they have no control.
Well, what it is basically is addiction is a strangulation of your mental process. That's what it does. It strangulates your mental process.
That's good.
You can no longer think clearly. Your cognitive thinking is being controlled by that addiction. That addiction is telling you, okay, you need money, go burglarize the guy's house. You need money, go on the street. I'll never forget, there was a mob wife, and he went away. See, with the kids, you'd always tell the kids, if your father, husband was going away to prison, you'd always tell the kids, dad is going away to college, okay? Or dad has an out-of-town job. Now, you know yourself, you're a very intelligent man. If you're away for 15 or 20 years, it doesn't take you that long to get a bachelor's degree, okay?
No.
But that's what the kids would be told, and kids would come up to me, they'd always say, Scott, is my father in the mob? And I'd say, talk to your father, because my father would tell, don't ever say anything.
No.
Because there's a mob saying that goes like this.
What?
If it's someone's business and it's not your business, it's none of your business. Okay?
Say it again.
If it's someone else's business and it's not your business, it's none of your business.
Stay away
In other words,
from
keep
it.
your nose out of it.
Yeah.
Keep your nose out of it. It's not yours. You won't get in trouble. If you look at maybe friends you've known, they maybe have given their opinions on stuff that they shouldn't have talked about to somebody,
Yeah.
and it's caused problems. And that's what this is really about. Keep your nose out of it. Keep it to yourself. Okay, so that's that's how that would be. But yeah, then we had two other doctors who were on the payroll who wrote prescriptions for paregoric. Now, paregoric was a liquid drug and they would get 10% what the street value, what was being sold on the street. Now, paregoric was a
You
drug
mean
that
the
started
doctor?
out-
The doctor would get that?
Yes, that's what.
Well-
Yeah, after it was sold, you go to the doctor's office and you give him his cut. That was his cut. Okay.
So
Doctors
was
aren't
there,
any
let me
more
ask you this. Hold
than-
on. Was there honor among thieves? In other words, if he told the doctor he's going to get 10%, you honestly went to him. It's the weirdest thing in the world. They call it honor among thieves, right?
Yeah, you had to, because if you lost that doctor, who's going to write the prescription? Pharmacist isn't going to accept it from you or me. If he sees a doctor's name on it, then he'll fill the prescription. And basically, what they were doing, what paregoric was, is if you had extreme diarrhea, extreme case, where over-the-counter medicine wouldn't help you, and you needed something more than that because you had an extreme case, the paregoric, the reason guys would buy it on the street, it had a little bit of opium in there. That little bit of opium would give them the high. So that's why they would guzzle it down. They'd guzzle the bottle down because they were getting a high from the opium, because the opium is what would stop the diarrhea. That's what it was for, just a little bit in there. And it was legal. It was legal at that time. It was up till the 1970s that this drug was being used for extreme diarrhea cases. Okay, so guys who would get prescriptions, they'd write maybe 10, 15, 20 prescriptions for being sold on the street. Okay, and once it was sold on the street, then they go to the doctor, give them the money, and the doctor would give them another prescription. Okay, so doctors weren't legit. We had doctors that were coming for in downtown Chicago. We had a lot of hotels that had mob prostitution. In fact, where I met Marilyn Monroe in the Blackstone on Saturday night, that was mob prostitution there. And the reason it was mob prostitution was because it was $12 million a year that was coming in. 12 million was coming in. Okay, so that way we had doctors who came down to the hotels, and they would meet one of the girls for prostitution, for sex, and they'd give them a physical. That you get your annual physical. The doctor would do it, and we had doctors, they would come, lawyers, politicians, and the doctors would always tell their wives, like when they come down Saturday morning to a mobbed up hotel with prostitution, or Saturday afternoon, they were going to see their patients in the hospital. So whenever I'd hear a doctor's wife say, my husband, he can't come this afternoon because he's had to go see patients in the hospital. And I'm thinking, lady, he's not seeing patients. He's seeing a prostitute. That's who he's seeing. And that's who would come down. Downtown Chicago, we had the doctors, the lawyers, the judges, CPAs, you name it, all the professional people.
You know what I never understood, and I don't need to know about your personal life, but I mean, I'm glad I never had to do that. Why would somebody want to engage in something that's intimacy, that's love? It's a God-given something for a loving relationship. Why would somebody want to do that with somebody who's not enjoying it? It's totally on the take. I cannot. Can you understand that? I can't understand that.
Yes, I can understand it because a lot of people have marriages that change. Okay. And what I mean by changing, relationships change. And while a guy might still be interested in sex, there's some women who have the 2 kids, the 3 kids. And then, as one doctor told me, he said, you're in the sexual desert for 40 years or something. They were looking for sex because it made them feel younger. It made them feel important. Someone was showing emotion to them, where in their marriages, it wasn't always working that way.
You mean to the men?
Because they had the kids. Because in most marriages, in those days at least, and a lot today, the dads were not hands-on husbands. Okay, the wife, they're doing everything. The wife is doing the shopping, the cleaning, the laundry, taking care of the kids. When the kids have a problem, who do they run to? They talk to mom about it. They don't talk to dad. That's how a lot of marriages are run. Okay, the father's the king, and everybody else is down on the lower level. The wife is doing everything. So for them to do that, it was their pleasure. Just like we had guys that came and wanted girls to dress up as a nurse, okay, or were into S&M with guys. Yeah, it's what guys it's like a alter ego in a sense that they feel they're free to do something. They're not being restricted. Okay, they don't have a happy home life. It's like in strip clubs, which is a 10% street tax. We go into street. That's how my book starts out. When I'm 9 years old, we're going into a strip club because the street tax on a strip club was 10%. Okay.
Well, what does that mean? So I own a place where they have these pole dancers. So the
Yes.
mafia comes along and says, "Hey, Mr. Palmer, we're happy you're here, but we'll make sure your place doesn't get burned down. You're never going to be robbed, but you got to give us 10% off the gross or the net
Correct.
or the net. I guess it would be the net, right?
Yeah, well, they'd have to come up with the 10%. Okay. How they came up with it is up to them. But they were told it was 10%. It would be every week. There'd be a collection every week. I was with my father. Same thing with the B-girl places, the bar girl places. And the bar girl places where mobbed up bars, the street tax on those were 3%. And what it would be, a single guy would come in or a married guy would come in, sit at the bar, and a girl would sit next to him and start listening to him, laugh at his jokes, to build up the tab, because a 50-cent beer in normal times, in those days, was a $2 beer. Okay.
Now hold on a second.
Right.
Hold on a second. What year are we talking?
We're talking 1958, 59, 60, 61.
No, I used to
62.
go. No, when I was younger. Now I was born in 53, 63, 64. So in 1970, a beer at the tavern, the Southern Tavern in Poughkeepsie, New York, was 10 cents a glass.
Well, no, these were a little higher. These were a little more upscale places. Okay.
Oh, okay.
A little more upscale. So, like I say, and the girls would order a beer, but they would never get a beer. What they would get would be near beer. I don't know if you're familiar with near beer.
Yeah.
Near beer looked like beer, but it had no alcoholic content.
It's non-alcoholic. Like Coors has Edge
Correct.
now. Matter of fact, I drink it. It's Coors Edge. It's non-alcoholic because I don't drink alcoholic
looks like
beverages. It tastes very good.
looks like
It actually tastes better than regular beer. It's Coors Edge. I hope they stay in business.
Today it's better than it was than in those days.
Yeah.
In those days it was near beer, and they didn't have the technology to
beer.
improve it. But it would look like a beer. So the guy didn't know, sitting next to her, that she's not going to get drunk, and he's not going to take her to a motel. And at the end of the evening, the bouncer, Big Ralph or Big Walter, whoever it was, would say to the guy, "It's time for you to go home now." And he says, "I got to go home." He says, "Sir, you're just here drinking, nothing more than that. And if I have to tell you more, we'll go outside." And the guy would pay his tab. And all of a sudden he'd look at his tab and says, whoa, what's all this? And Big Ralph, who was the bartender, would say, "This is what you owe. Okay, this is what you owe." And again, you'd get these guys who came in, who the single guys maybe didn't have a social life.
Yeah, but wait a second. If you get burned like that one time, you're not going to go back.
Well, you shouldn't, but guys would. Okay, guys would, because someone was listening to them. Okay, the girl was always listening.
Isn't that quite sad that people are so lonely that
Correct.
they will pay for the companionship, and it's not sexual, just so they can be heard?
Well, look what's going on today with the dating services. They're all cons. You go online, they have all these dating services.
Yeah.
You can talk to someone, and look how these people get ripped off. There's people that have lost a couple 100,000, 300,000. They pay guys. They pay mostly women, but it's men too. They pay people, and they've never even seen them, because the people steal somebody's photo from their Instagram or one of their social media accounts, and they post it as if this is what they look like. Like I'm going to use you as an example. Say, you want to look like Cary Grant, or you want to look like Paul Newman or Robert Redford. You'd steal their photograph and you put it on your website, and the woman would think, "Wow, he's a handsome guy. I want to continue a relationship." And you drag her along. You give her some story. Today, a lot of these sites are from Nigeria. They're out of the country. So you have no way of really knowing. And they tell the women that their passports are being held up and they need money for this. They need money for that, money for a lawyer. It's all cons. It's all scams.
Oh, you mean like she falls in love with you because men are seduced by the eye, the Bible says, but women are seduced, I guess, by the voice. And so you're
Correct.
on there, and then you say, "Oh, well, I'm in France. I'm in love
Yeah.
with you too. I got to get back to America, but I don't have any money to get back." And
Yeah.
she's in love, so she's going to send him money.
You have to always remember when people have stars in their eyes
Yeah,
and are lonely, they're
yeah,
not thinking properly.
yeah.
Okay, because they have emotional issues at that point that they want to be with somebody. How many, I could tell you a lot of people, especially in mob life, you see with the Hollywood stars. I won't name their names, but a lot of them, they have to have a man around them. Some actors had to have a woman around them.
Oh, because they were gay. Because they were gay, and they didn't want everybody to know that.
No, not that was some. But I'm just saying, people want someone around them. They want someone they can talk to when they come home from work. They want attention. They want someone to be in their life who wants to be in their life. So it wasn't because of being gay or.
It's funny that you said your father also knew the guy with the cigar, who's the bad mobster that died of syphilis in prison.
Yeah, Al Capone.
Yeah, Al
Al
Capone. He had a house not too far from here, in a little town that has a lot of hills in it over here, Mount Dora, and he had a home over there. So your father knew Al Capone.
That's correct.
So tell me something. Did he pass along any personality traits? Tell you about him? Any stories?
Yeah, the only thing he would tell me about Al Capone was Al Capone probably needed double face tape on his zipper. Okay.
What do you mean?
Because he was always had his eyes on the women.
Oh.
And as my father would say, you have to be able to separate women from business. Women from business. Don't mix them. Don't ever mix them. And Al Capone that's why he died of syphilis. His mind was always on a woman. If he saw a pretty girl, my father said, if he saw a pretty girl walking down the street, he'd tell the driver, stop the car, stop the car. Roll down the window, say, hey, come on over here. I want to talk to you for a second. He was always watching women. You see that a lot in mob life. That caused a lot of problems with guys. They were always had their eyes other places than they should have. They weren't always thinking about business. They didn't separate it. Yeah, you'd see that.
Well, the Bible warns of that. The eye of man is, It's
there's a lot of things, like I say, that guys shouldn't be doing, but they don't care. They don't care. Like there's a rule that every mob family goes by, that cops and kids are off limits. Okay, cops and kids are off limits. So I never should have seen my first murder at 9. And I never should have seen a guy's hands cut off when I was 11. I never should have seen a guy's head decapitated by the same guy who cut off the guy's hands when I was 11. But the reason why I did was because Las Vegas, at its height, was bringing in $200 million a year. I mean, the outfit was $200 million a year, and $100 million of that $200 million was coming from Las Vegas. So when I say the first conversation of the day is about money, last conversation of the day is about money, they didn't care about me at all because my father's bringing in that money.
Well, hold on. Now, you were in the room when they cut this guy's hands off?
Correct.
Why were you in the room?
Because my father wanted me to go and see this guy because they wanted to talk to me. And I didn't know what was going to be happening. With my father's approach with me was this: you're going to see everything in mob life, and then you'll make your own decision of what you want to do. But you're going to see everything. Your eyes are going to be open. Your eyes are going to be open. And I did. I saw everything.
Well, a good Jew wants to educate his children. But I would think the instincts of a father or mother would be to protect my little boy from seeing such a horror.
Well, that was in your life. You weren't in mob life.
No.
Okay? You weren't in mob life.
So
and the reason being, I'll be very honest with you. The reason was when I would see guys who drop out of high school at 16, 17, and they would join the outfit. They would get involved with mob life. Their expectations of what they thought mob life was not true. I saw it all young, I knew what the real
Well,
life
hold on.
was about.
What did they think it was? Just a simple version. What did they think it was, and what was it really? The
That's
contrast.
correct. But I knew.
No, I want
what
you
it
to tell
was.
me. I want you to tell me. Give me, for instance, what they did expect and what it was really like.
Well, they thought what was going to be was that there's going to be no consequences. We're going to get away with everything. We're powerful. We're going to control everything. He sees all this money. He sees all this action, and like nothing's going to bother him. Okay. And what he finds out is, yeah, there's consequences. There's legal consequences. Okay. That's the biggest thing. My father would always say, mob life is a two-shoulder business. He said, over one shoulder, you have to watch for guys that are going to try and give you your receipt, going to try and kill you. The other shoulder is you have to watch the government, FBI, IRS, criminal division. They're after you. So there was a lot of pressure. It was a high-pressure business. That's why guys smoked a lot, ate high-calorie foods. Yeah,
It's really no way to live, because it's kind of like, even since we've been on the air, I got a text message from somebody who's quite famous, and I was at this person's house, and I always kind of had this fantasy growing up. I wanted to be in show business and everything, and I thought all those people are connected with each other, and then I find myself inside this mansion, and I'm with this person and a couple other people in the family, and I find out, well, they're just sitting. It's a big kitchen, but they're just sitting around the kitchen like anybody sits around the kitchen. And it's kind of like what Keith Richards said with the Rolling Stones. He says, "Man, I'm out there performing for 50,000 people. Then I go back to my lonesome motel room, and all I got is me and a TV. And sure, that's why he did drugs, to kind of come
Well, that's
down
what
from
I'm
that
saying.
adulation."
That's what I'm saying. See, you got to remember, when you're in the life, you're leading two lives. You have your personal life
Yeah.
away from mob activities,
No.
and then you have your mob life. But
No.
when a guy gets made, he's always told, you have to come to us first. You got to come to us.
Yeah.
Okay. If we want you 4 o'clock in the morning, you're our family. You come to us.
Right.
So
We're your
guys gotta
family.
know that.
Now, so
Gotta
listen.
do the
So what did you do for a living? You didn't get involved in the mob. You didn't choose the mob. What did you do for a living in Chicago?
Well, I worked for the city of Chicago for 35 years. I worked in two departments, purchasing and the
Okay.
comptroller's office.
Okay, so you're a smart
As
guy.
I
Why?
always say those were the two hot money departments. One was contracts with money, okay, and the other was comptroller's office was where the money was, okay.
Well, were you able to siphon off some of that money?
No, no. But what I saw was, you got to remember, for the city of Chicago, they have non-bid contracts. Okay, not everything is bid.
Oh.
Okay, so
So if I was your
Not-
friend, you could feed me the fact that, hey, go on.
business.
Ah,
It's like example, the corporation council, the lawyers, right?
yeah.
Now they were given the authority by city ordinance that if they had to, they didn't have to do a bid job for a contract. They could outsource it. Okay, non-competitive bid is what they refer to. So sure, if you had friends, if you were a lawyer and I was a lawyer and I was a corporation counsel, I could give you a contract to do something.
I
And the
just
city of
don't.
Chicago
I
had over 200 lawyers.
I don't think like a criminal. In other words, when I was younger, and a lot of people would tell me I was good enough looking to be in soap operas, all I would have had to do was find somebody in the Mafia or somebody connected and say, hey, I'll give you 10%, get me in. And I could have been a star, right?
Correct.
I remember
Correct.
I was almost signed. It's funny, and I'm so naive. I was almost signed to Liberty Records a few years ago. Obviously, a number of years
Remember
ago. This is
Liberty.
over 30 years ago now. And I'd won first place vocalist in Nashville's Music City Song Festival. Well, I have lunch with the guy, Charlie Daniels, manager, and he says, well, you got to come up with $500,000. I said, I'm poor. What do you mean? He says, you got. So I got a businessman who was a former CEO of the tobacco industry or something. Anyway, he put up the 500 grand, and then at the last minute, though, he backed out and put the money into a cable company out in Nebraska, which he lost the money anyway. He's dead now. But that went my career, and that's when I said, I'm out of Nashville. I'm going to go live now, because I don't want to be a 60-year-old man going, hey, would you like to sing my song on your next album, please, so I can pay the rent on my one-room apartment? No, thanks. But anyway.
Well, that's what happened with Morris Levy. I knew Morris Levy, well, Mercury Records, but he was tied to the Genovese crime family. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
and Morris Levy would hold a revenue that the singers were supposed to get, the residuals the singers were supposed to get. He wasn't giving them to them. Okay, especially the black performers. He was holding the money. Oh, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. But he had the muscle behind him because he had the Genovese family. And he was president of Mercury Records. I don't know if you ever heard of Mercury.
Yep.
Mercury
Yeah,
Records.
of course.
Yeah.
Well,
That's how he would work.
My friend who was the original member of the Coasters. Remember they were Charlie Brown.
Yes, I remember
Was
the Coasters. That was
everybody?
one of the groups.
Was everybody always picking on me? Bum 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 bum. Well, he died. I mean, we became friends, and in the end, they were doing these little concerts trying to make up some money because what it was this two little Jewish boys wrote all the songs. They got all the residuals. People don't understand. Elvis, I don't care who you were, you never made a dime off the stuff on the radio, mechanical rights, they were nothing, But where you made your money was the live concerts. And so a lot of these people ended up, it's kind of like the band with the drummer there. He was the famous singer, Up on Cripple Creek, they send me. Well, that guy died poor. He was having financial, but Robbie Robertson had a lot of money when he died because Robbie Robertson wrote the songs. And people were upset later on, but they didn't know about that. But listen, so I want to tell you this. You have been a really good interview. I want you to know that. Scott, you're very good. And you're such a good Jewish boy. What can I expect? But you're good with the stories, bless you. But anyway, so Scott Hoffman, the title of the book is Inside. If you want to have a copy of this, Noah can send it to you. I recommend, this was a good interview. You let me know what you think, but they can send you an MP3 file, which is audio, to use wherever you want to use it. But they can also send you, I think it's an MP4, whatever it is, the video too, and you can place that on your website. It's kind of like having a black and white website, and then you put color to it. You put a video like this up and people watch it. They're going to want more. They're going to buy that book. But that's my opinion. That's my free consultation, no charge today. But listen.
Well, I won't. I'll tell you this. I would say, then if Mr. Palmer comes in the store, don't give him his receipt.
Okay.
And you'll walk out.
I learned a lot from you today. It's amazing. We could go on again. Listen, in the future, too, if you want to do another interview, you're certainly welcome back here. If you come to Florida, come right in my studio here, and we'll spend an hour or two, okay?
Yeah, you're in Vero Beach, Dodger Town, right?
Yeah, we used to have the Dodgers, and we miss them.
I remember Steve Garvey's father used to drive the bus.
Yep, that's right. And Tommy Lasorda and I became very good friends before he passed. Had multiple interviews
I met Tommy
with him.
Lasorda.
Yeah.
I met him because he was close with Frank. I met him.
He was close to Frank Sinatra?
Correct. Oh, yeah.
I wish
Very
I'd met
close.
Sinatra. I admire Sinatra. I've had a lot of people on about Sinatra. He would give money away to people. Do you know that the guy, who's the black man with the one eye?
Sammy Davis Jr.
So he dies. He owes the IRS $1 million. So Sinatra goes over to see his widow and says, here, he gives her a check for $1 million so she's out of debt. I've heard other stories. I mean, it just goes on. I learn a lot in this. I've been doing this for 29 years. You learn a lot. And there's good people, and there's good people. And Sinatra, I'm sorry, he was one of the good people, man. I wish I'd met him,
Frank had his ways. He was good, but he had his ways.
Oh, I'm sure.
He had his temperament, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I remember lots of times he would tell guys, I can have your legs broken. Guys didn't always want to hear it.
Well, one thing the Italians are into loyalty. If you're
very
loyal,
much.
I have somebody who supported me for many years with, let's put it this way, in the automotive industry. And he's Italian. I was treated like a gem for almost 20 years. Everything's fine. We're still friends. We're not working together now, but the Italians will go to the end of the earth for you if you're loyal. But it's kind of like with Donald Trump. He will do anything for you. But if you throw a pebble at him, you're the scum of the earth. You know what I'm
There's a
saying?
long story that we don't have time to talk about, but I know why Frank said that Mario Puzo choke on it. Okay, I know all about it. And there was much more to that story than just the anti-defamation lawsuit that Frank was filing. Because in the movie The Godfather, the scenes where Johnny Fontaine, the singer,
yes,
the scenes were cut. Okay, the scenes were cut. He was supposed to be in a lot more scenes. Al Martino got the job.
Yeah.
Because when Frank, there's another story.
Yeah.
But Frank refused it. Yeah, he refused it. And Vic Damone, who was close with Frank, they went to Vic Damone after Frank said no, and he was mad. And Vic Damone called up Frank. And Frank called me. He says, they went to Vic Damone. And I said, I bet you told him don't take it. He said, you're damn right I told him that. So they went to Al Martino, who was living in England because he had mob trouble in Philly, where he was from, because he got beat a couple of times. So they went to Al Martino, but that only short part with Johnny Fontaine, the singer, it was supposed to be much, much more. And that's a big, big story of what happened there. Okay. And also when Frank met Puzo at Chasen's, they had to be separated because Frank was going after him. And Frank would, if you wanted to get Frank going, just say, the movie The Godfather, he'd go crazy.
Oh,
he'd
my word.
explode.
Yeah.
You couldn't talk about it. So you have to remember,
Well,
Sam Giancana, my father, and myself, when we called, Frank had a 24/7 operating, had a phone system set up. And when we called, within 2 or 3 minutes, he'd respond to our calls. Other calls would be sent to Julie Rizzo, okay? Julie Rizzo. And that's where, in his bar in New York, 2nd and 9th Avenue, is where Johnny Carson ran into the problem. Big problem. Big enough problem that Carson was taking sick days, calling in sick. They had to bring in guest hosts. Yeah, big problem.
Oh, you
there.
mean, was he
I know
drinking?
about that.
Drinking?
No, he's trying to pick up a girl. And the girlfriend's boyfriend was a captain in the Genovese crime family.
Oh.
That was a big mistake. Big mistake. That was Johnny Carson. Okay, that was him. He went in. Yeah, it was right in there.
What happened? Did he apologize? What happened?
No, they threw him down the stairs and they put a number on his head. Okay? They put a number on his head. And they eventually had to talk with Joe Colombo, who was going to have, he had the Italian, at first was the Italian Anti-Defamation League, then it became the Italian Civil Rights League. And he was filing a lawsuit against the movie The Godfather also. He got close with Al Rudy. I didn't know him, the producer. And that's who they eventually had to go to talk to the Genovese guy. Joe Colombo said he'd do it if NBC would cover his parade in Union Square in New York. Okay, and they agreed to do it. No other station would do it. We're not touching anything a mobsters involved with, but that's how it ended. But it was a bigger story with Carson. Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
All right, listen, we're out of time for today. The title of the book is Inside. It's available everywhere. Scott Hoffman. Make sure you key in the name Scott Hoffman. And
Hoffman. Scott M. Hoffman.
Scott M. Hoffman, and that's Inside. And a fascinating Inside as an 8-year-old. His father, who Jewish, was the consultant for the mobsters, the big-time mobsters. And he tells it all in this book. And you're welcome back here anytime, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you have anyone that's bothering you, just ask them to start your car. Don't you start it. Let them start the car.
Okay.
You take care of yourself.
You too, Scott.